Brought to you by WikiVidi Documentaries. 7 Deadly Sins. The 7 deadly sins, also known as the capital vices or cardinal sins, is a grouping and classification of vices of Christian origin. Behaviors or habits are classified under this category if they directly give birth to other immoralities. According to the standard list, they are pride, greed, lust, envy, gluttony, wrath and sloth, which are also contrary to the 7 virtues. These sins are often thought to be abuses or excessive versions of one's natural faculties or passions. This classification originated with the Desert Fathers, especially Evagrius Ponticus, who identified 7 or 8 evil thoughts or spirits that one needed to overcome. Evagrius's pupil John Cassian, with his book The Institutes, brought the classification to Europe, where it became fundamental to Catholic confessional practices as evident in penitential manuals, sermons like the Parson's Tale from Chaucer's Canterbury Tales, and artworks like Dante's Purgatory. The Church used the doctrine of the deadly sins in order to help people stop their inclination towards evil before dire consequences and misdeeds occur. The leader teachers especially focused on pride and greed, both of which are seen as inherently sinful and as underlying all other sins. To inspire people to focus on the 7 deadly sins, the vices are discussed in treatises, and depicted in paintings and sculpture decorations on churches. Peter Bruegel the Elder's Prince of the 7 Deadly Sins, and extremely numerous other works, both non-religious and religious, show the continuity of this practice in the culture and everyday life of the modern era. Greco-Roman antecedents. While the 7 deadly sins as we know them did not originate with the Greeks or Romans, there were ancient precedents for them. Aristotle's Nicomachean Ethics lists several positive, healthy human qualities, excellences, or virtues. Aristotle argues that, for each positive quality there are 2 negative vices that are found on each extreme of the virtue. Courage, for example, is the human excellence of virtue in facing fear and risk. Excessive courage makes one rash, while a deficiency of courage makes one cowardly. This principle of virtue found in the middle or mean between excess and deficiency is Aristotle's notion of the golden mean. Aristotle lists virtues like courage, temperance or self-control, generosity, greatness of soul, proper response to anger, friendliness, and wit or charm. Roman writers like Horace extolled the value of virtue while listing and warning against vices. His first epistle says that, to flee vice is the beginning of virtue, and to have got rid of folly is the beginning of wisdom. Origin of the currently recognized 7 deadly sins. The modern concept of the 7 deadly sins is linked to the works of the 4th century monk Evagrius Ponticus, who listed 8 evil thoughts in Greek as follows. They were translated into the Latin of Western Christianity, thus becoming part of the Western tradition's spiritual pietas, as follows. These evil thoughts can be categorized into 3 types. In AD 590, Pope Gregory I revised this list to form the more common list. Gregory combined tristitia with acedia, and vanagloria with superbia, and added envy. Gregory's list became the standard list of sins. Thomas Aquinas uses and defends Gregory's list in his Summa Theologica. The Anglican Communion, Lutheran Church, and Methodist Church, among other Christian denominations, continue to retain this list. Moreover, modern-day evangelists, such as Billy Graham, have explicated the 7 deadly sins. Historical and modern definitions, views and associations. Most of the capital sins, with the sole exception of sloth, are defined by Dante Alighieri as perverse or corrupt versions of love for something or another. Lust, gluttony, and greed are all excessive or disordered love of good things. Sloth is a deficiency of love, wrath, envy, and pride, a perverted love directed toward others' harm. In the 7 capital sins are 7 ways of eternal death. The capital sins from lust to envy are generally associated with pride, which has been labeled as the father of all sins, etc. Lust. Lust, or lechery, is intense longing. It is usually thought of as intense or unbridled sexual desire, which leads to fornication, adultery, rape, bestiality, and other immoral sexual acts. However, lust could also mean simply desire in general, thus, lust for money, power, and other things are sinful. In accordance with the words of Henry Edward, the impurity of lust transforms one into a slave of the devil. Lust, if not managed properly, can subvert propriety. German philosopher Schopenhauer wrote as follows: Dante defined lust as the disordered love for individuals. It is generally thought to be the least serious capital sin, as it is an abuse of a faculty that humans share with animals, and sins of the flesh are less grievous than spiritual sins. In Dante's Purgatorio, the penitent walks within flames to purge himself of lustful thoughts and feelings. In Dante's Inferno, unforgiven souls of the sin of lust are blown about in restless hurricane-like winds, symbolic of their own lack of self-control to the lustful passions in earthly life. Gluttony. Gluttony is the overindulgence and overconsumption of anything to the point of waste. The word derives from the Latin glutire, meaning to gulp down or swallow. In Christianity, it is considered a sin if the excessive desire for food causes it to be withheld from the needy. Because of these scripts, gluttony can be interpreted as selfishness, essentially placing concern with one's own impulses or interests above the well-being or interests of others. During times of famine, war, and similar periods when food is scarce, it is possible for one to indirectly kill other people through starvation just by eating too much or even too soon. Medieval church leaders took a more expansive view of gluttony, arguing that it could also include an obsessive anticipation of meals and the constant eating of delicacies and excessively costly foods. Aquinas went so far as to prepare a list of 5 ways to commit gluttony, comprising, of these, ardenter is often considered the most serious, since it is extreme attachment to the pleasure of mere eating, which can make the committer eat impulsively, absolutely, and without qualification, live merely to eat and drink, lose attachment to health-related, social, intellectual, and spiritual pleasures, and lose proper judgment. An example is Esau selling his birthright for ordinary food of bread and pottage of lentils. His punishment was that the profane person, who for a morsel of meat sold his birthright, we learn that he found no place for repentance, though he sought it carefully, with tears. Thank you for watching. Brought to you by WikiVidi Documentaries. Please like and subscribe below. Please like and subscribe below.